Hello and welcome to the Tom Lasseter podcast. Today we're going to talk about feeding fish meal to chickens and potential health problems related to eating eggs from those chickens. So first, a word from our one and only sponsor, Lasseter Grasslands Beef. You can check them out at lgbeef.com, lgbeef.com. I think it's one of the purest forms of protein you can buy, but of course I'm biased, so check it out, read about it. And anyway, one of the central themes of my podcast is getting to know the source of your food. So I encourage everyone to go meet a producer of eggs, or go meet a farmer that grows vegetables, or go meet someone who raises grass-fed beef, and ask them a lot of questions. And you'll hear a lot of potential questions you can ask people on this podcast and really figure out what they're feeding their animals or what soil they're growing their vegetables in. I think the more you learn about where your food comes from, the better informed you're going to be, and potentially you're going to learn about some things that you didn't know, and maybe you'll focus a little bit more on what you're eating, and perhaps you'll feel better as a result of that. So anyway, on to the fish meal in eggs story. So 6 months ago, I was cooking breakfast for my family, and I had the cast iron skillet a little bit too hot. So when I poured the scrambled eggs into the skillet, the whole kitchen filled up with this horrible fish smell. And it was really disgusting. And I thought, wow, that's really strange. I can't imagine why that would be. And I thought about it all day. And then later in the day, I was at a grocery store buying my very expensive organic pasture-raised eggs, whatever. And I thought, well, maybe they explain what they feed to their chickens on the grocery store website. So I went and I Googled, food standards for our chickens or whatever. And they say, we do not allow the feeding of land-based animal protein to our chickens. And so this obviously leaves this huge loophole of feeding sea-based protein to chickens, which is fish meal. And so anyway, I was kind of shocked because I had never heard about this very common industry practice. And we happened to be raising some baby quail at that time. And we bought this very expensive organic chick meal online to feed the quail. And so I went home and I looked at the ingredient list on the chick meal, and yes, the number one ingredient was fish meal, which was kind of amazing. So then I decided I would Google potential health risks from feeding fish meal to chickens. And this is one of my favorite things to do these days, is to go Google something and then read the AI generated response, because at this point, I think the AI generated response is not very censored, and so it sometimes gives some very interesting answers. And I'm sure that once Google and the industry figure this out, that the AI generated responses will not be as good. But for now, I think they're very interesting. And you can play around with it. You get very different responses every time you Google, even if you Google the exact same things. So I'm just going to read you the response I got from Google's AI to the question, are there health concerns from eating eggs from chickens fed fish meal? And the response is, while generally safe, there are potential health concerns related to eating eggs from chickens fed fish meal, including the risk of foodborne pathogens and the potential for heavy metal contamination. Although the risk of contamination in eggs is less than in poultry meat. Oh, well, so it's less than eating chicken. Well, that's good. Here's a more detailed look at the potential health concerns. Foodborne pathogens, Salmonella. Fish meal can harbor foodborne pathogens like Salmonella, which can contaminate the chickens and potentially lead to foodborne illness in humans. Other pathogens, improperly processing, transportation, or storage of fish meal can lead to contamination with other harmful microorganisms such as E. coli, Clostridium botulinum, Bacillus cereus, and Aspergillus flavus. Anyway, I don't know how serious those potential things are, but here's heavy metal contamination. Mercury and other metals. Fish meal, especially if sourced from contaminated waters, can contain high levels of mercury and other heavy metals. PFAS. Research has shown that PFAS, or, quote, forever chemicals, end quote, can be found in eggs laid by hens fed contaminated fish meal. Other concerns, fishy taint. Feeding chickens fish meal or fish oil can impart a fishy taint to eggs and meat, which may be unpalatable to some consumers. There we go. That was my original problem. Allergens. In some cases, allergenic peptides from fish meal can be detectable in the eggs or meat produced from chickens fed diets containing fish meal. Sustainability. The use of fish meal as a feed ingredient for poultry raises concerns about the sustainability of wild fish stocks. Mitigation and safety. Ensuring proper handling, processing, transportation, and storage of fish meal can help reduce the risk of contamination. Source verification. Choosing fish meal from sustainable and reputable sources can help minimize the risk of heavy metal contamination and other issues. Food safety practices. Following proper food safety practices when handling and preparing eggs can help reduce the risk of foodborne illness. Cook eggs thoroughly. Cooking eggs thoroughly can kill any potential pathogens, reducing the risk of foodborne illness. So that was Google's answer to this question. Pretty long answer. And so, one thing to think about is, so the food industry, the egg industry, the poultry industry is feeding fish meal to chickens because it's a very cheap source of protein. It keeps the chickens healthy, makes them lay more eggs, blah, blah, blah. And their big challenge is, how do we feed them a lot of fish meal, but not so much that the eggs have a fishy taste or the chicken meat has a fishy taste? And so this is the whole game in the industry is, what can we feed animals to make them produce more meat, gain more weight, whatever, produce more eggs, but not have these weird side effects that consumers might find untasteful? And how can we do this and not talk about it so people don't get concerned about it? And so my suggestion is, hey, how about trying to find a source of eggs that don't come from chickens that are fed fish meal? And, is that possible? And I would suggest to you that it is possible. And, maybe one thing is to look for eggs that come from chickens that are fed a vegetarian diet. I don't know if there's a loophole around that, but maybe that's one way to solve this fish meal problem. I've noticed recently in the grocery store that there are very few eggs that have that claim, because I think everyone in the egg industry has figured out it's very difficult to feed chickens a vegetarian diet and have them produce enough eggs to be viable. So I think that's why, or maybe it's that, in certain climates, it's very difficult. So maybe since we're in Colorado, it's difficult to find eggs with the fed a vegetarian diet claim. But anyway, I would suggest you go find someone who raises chickens. Maybe your neighbor raises backyard chickens, and ask them if you can look at the label of their chicken feed. And if it contains fish meal, maybe suggest to them that they buy a different chicken feed. Because I think a lot of people just simply aren't aware of this, that it's a massive standard practice in the egg industry. And I think if you talk to your neighbor or your favorite chicken producer and explain to them that you want eggs from chickens that are not fed fish meal, that they might be happy to comply, because they might not even know about this issue. And they might be shocked as well. A lot of times people who are raising chickens or whatever don't even really fully understand what is in the feed that they're feeding their chickens. And, while you're at it, you might also ask if they're feeding any feed that has pesticides or other chemicals in it, because a lot of times they'll be feeding some supplement that has some sort of pesticide in it, just quote unquote to keep the chickens healthy, and they don't even know that this is in the feed that they're feeding to their chickens, or in the supplement that they're feeding to their chickens, or whatever. So anyway, I think the best recommendation I have is go meet a farmer, go understand where your food comes from, look at the labels of the food that you're eating, and see if your health improves as a result of that. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Bye.